What if Trump's boldest trade move yet doesn't punish Canada but backfires on America? With a 35% tariff on lumber, steel, and aluminum, U.S. industries, especially in cities like Detroit, are already feeling the pain. Costs are rising, jobs are at risk, and production is slowing. Meanwhile, Canada is quietly pushing back, securing new trade deals and gaining ground. Could this move end up hurting America more than helping it? In today's video, we'll break down why Canada might win this trade war and why the U.S. economy could be the real loser. The tariff war is no longer a distant threat, it's here, and Canada's backbone industries are taking direct hits. Lumber, steel, and aluminum, the economic lifeblood of provinces like British Columbia, Ontario, and Quebec, are suddenly under siege, slapped with crushing 35% tariffs by the United States. These aren't just numbers on paper, they represent thousands of jobs, shuttered factories, and livelihoods hanging by a thread. But here's the twist, it's not just Canada bleeding. American industries that rely on Canadian raw materials are caught in the fallout. In cities like Detroit and Pittsburgh, manufacturers are watching costs explode and supply chains falter. These tariffs are ricocheting back at the U.S. economy, and fast. In trying to punish Canada, is America quietly sabotaging its own workforce? Stuck in the middle of this cross-border crossfire? Ordinary workers and communities, families who never asked for this fight. What started as a strategic move is now spiraling into a full-blown trade standoff. And if cooler heads don't prevail, this could rewrite the future of North American economics for decades to come. This isn't surface-level news, this is what's shaping the next decade. If you're someone who thinks deeper, welcome to the front row. Subscribe to GlobeChoas Insights. What happens when your biggest trading partner suddenly turns the screws on your core industries? That's not a hypothetical. It's Canada's reality right now. The U.S. has hiked tariffs on Canadian lumber, steel, and aluminum to a crushing 35%, up from an already painful 25%. That's a direct hit on over 30 billion Canadian dollars in exports powering housing, infrastructure, and auto manufacturing. Provinces like BC, Ontario, and Quebec are now facing shutdowns, lost contracts, and mass layoffs. But the damage doesn't stop at the border. American states like Michigan, Ohio, and Pennsylvania are already feeling the fallout: higher costs, slower production, and supply chain chaos. The very industries these tariffs aim to protect are now cracking under pressure. And the reason? National economic interest, political code for a risky gamble. Because these tariffs aren't just numbers, they're weapons. And both sides just fired the first shot. Who is behind these tariffs, and who's getting hit the hardest? Who pulled the trigger, and who's taking the hit? This move comes straight from the top, Donald Trump. Back in campaign mode and echoing his 2016 war cry, America First. His team, led by the U.S. Trade Representative, is reviving hardline trade policies to fire up the base. But the shockwaves? They're slamming into communities far beyond Washington. Canada's response? Outrage. Prime Minister Mark Carney slammed the tariffs as a reckless escalation. Trade Minister called for immediate retaliation. And premiers from BC to Ontario are begging Ottawa to step in fast before jobs disappear by the thousands. But this isn't just a war of words between politicians. Real people are caught in the blast zone. In Canada, it's the mill workers in BC, the steel crews in Ontario, the families in small towns built around exports watching contracts vanish and pink slips roll in. For many, this isn't the first time, it's the third time in a decade. And in the U.S.? The pain's spreading fast. Construction firms in Texas and California say project costs are exploding. Even beer can producers are feeling the squeeze. So who's getting hurt? Not the politicians. Not the lobbyists. But the workers. The welders. The truckers. The everyday people. This isn't just Canada versus the US. This is a North American economic civil war, and no one wins when the middle class becomes collateral damage. If this shocked you, wait till what's next. Hit subscribe now. When did this start, and why is the timing so dangerous? Timing isn't everything, it's the whole game. And in this case, the clock didn't just start ticking, it's been counting down for months. The tariffs were announced nearly 2 months ago, and just days later, they slammed into place. No industry consultation. No transition period. Just a cold, hard 35% slapped on Canadian lumber, steel, and aluminum overnight. But the real question is, why now? Simple. It's an election year in the US. And nothing fires up a campaign crowd like a trade war. Trump's 2024 playbook is a familiar one: attack unfair deals, frame foreign allies as economic threats, and promise to bring jobs back home. This time, Canada's in the crosshairs. The move was surgical, dropped right as swing states like Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin ramp into campaign season. These are regions built on factories and foundries, where Made in America still wins votes even if it comes with economic fallout. And that's where the timing turns dangerous. Both Canada and the US are still limping through post-COVID recovery. Inflation is sticky. Supply chains are brittle. And just 1 year into the new USMCA agreement, the very foundations of North American trade are already cracking. So when did this start? On paper, 2 months ago. In reality, the moment trade policy was turned into campaign ammo. And if history tells us anything, trade wars start fast, but they don't end with press releases. They end with pain. If you're still here, you're not just watching the news, you're decoding it. Hit that subscribe button and stay in the loop while others are left guessing. Where is the damage hitting hardest, and what regions are on the brink? Tariffs may be written in Washington, but their pain is deeply local. And in Canada, that pain is hitting 3 provinces like a sledgehammer. In British Columbia, softwood lumber isn't just an industry, it's a way of life. Logging towns are seeing shipments stalled, contracts cancelled, and mills scaling back shifts. In Ontario, especially around Hamilton, steel producers are watching US orders vanish, leaving auto suppliers and construction firms in limbo. And in Quebec, the aluminum belt is taking a direct hit. Smelters that rely on cross-border deals are suddenly silent, with contracts drying up and uncertainty rising. But make no mistake, this isn't just Canada's crisis. In the US, the blowback is real. Michigan, especially Detroit, depends on Canadian aluminum and steel to keep the auto industry alive. Now, assembly lines are bracing for disruption. Ohio and Pennsylvania, both key swing states, are already reporting material shortages, price hikes, and stalled orders. Even construction-heavy states like California and Texas are feeling the ripple effects, as supply chains fray and project costs explode. Border cities like Windsor and Detroit, which once thrived as a single economic engine, are suddenly exposed. The same bridges that fueled growth are now choke points of crisis. And it's not just the big players. Small and mid-sized businesses, fabricators, freight companies, contractors are the first to feel the squeeze and the last to recover. This is the real front line of the trade war. And the casualties aren't in Parliament or on Capitol Hill, they're in the mills, the warehouses, the shops, and the homes of everyday North Americans just trying to stay afloat. Why is the US really doing this, and what's the real agenda? Oh, why is the US really doing this? What's the real agenda behind the tariffs? Officially, Washington says it's about protecting national economic interests. But peel back the surface, and it's clear this isn't about economics. It's about politics. Let's set the record straight: Canada isn't flooding the US with cheap, illegal goods. These are long-standing trade flows: lumber, steel, aluminum, baked into North American supply chains for decades. There's no national security threat here. What there is a narrative. And that narrative? It's made for election season. Trump is betting big on one thing, that tariffs make him look tough on trade. That slapping Canada with a 35% hit will play well in swing states like Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, where the phrase American jobs hits hardest. It's the same America First script from the China trade war, now aimed north. And why Canada? Because it's a safe political target. Not too hostile, not too small, just enough to make noise without causing a full-blown crisis. Behind the scenes, U.S. lobbyists are also pushing hard. Big players in steel and lumber see tariffs as a fast track to higher prices and less competition. But there's a catch: those same industries can't fully meet demand. So U.S. manufacturers end up paying more or slowing down, hurting the very economy these policies claim to protect. At the end of the day, this isn't about protecting America. It's about leverage, lobbyists, and campaign optics. A trade war dressed up as patriotism, while workers on both sides of the border pay the price. The world's getting more chaotic, and the lazy takes won't cut it anymore. If you want sharp, unfiltered geopolitics that actually connects the dots, this is your channel. Subscribe now. How are these tariffs impacting industries, and how are Canada and the US responding? The fallout was instant and brutal. In Canada, the industrial core is under siege. Lumber mills in BC are sitting on unsold stock. Shipments that used to cross the border daily? Frozen. Steel and aluminum plants in Ontario and Quebec are slashing shifts, laying off workers, and halting orders. Export deals are being cancelled overnight. Contracts are being renegotiated under pressure. And thousands of jobs are no longer just at risk, they're already disappearing. But this isn't just about numbers. This is about identity. These industries are Canada's economic backbone, built into the DNA of towns from Kamloops to Hamilton. Now flip to the US. Factories in Detroit, Cleveland, Buffalo, all reeling. Canadian aluminum and steel? Not a luxury. A necessity. They're in your car, your fridge, your infrastructure. Without them, everything slows: assembly lines, housing projects, job growth. Auto giants are warning of delays. Construction firms can't bid competitively. Smaller manufacturers? Facing layoffs. So how are the governments reacting? Canada hit back fast. Slammed the tariffs as economic sabotage. Counter-tariffs are in the works, targeting U.S. agricultural goods, household products, and swing state exports. Behind the scenes, Canadian diplomats are invoking the USMCA's dispute mechanisms, calling the move a clear violation of trade rules. Provincial leaders aren't staying quiet either. Ontario is demanding federal compensation. Quebec's warning of energy sector spillover. BC is pushing for emergency trade missions to Washington. And the US? Crickets at the top. Trump's team insists these are defensive moves. But governors in swing states are starting to speak up, especially as factories slow down and donors get nervous. What started as a single trade action is now a full-blown economic standoff. Two nations, billions at stake, and everyday workers caught in the crossfire. This isn't noise. It's power moves decoded. Hit that button. Canada's industrial heart is under attack, and the shockwaves are spreading fast. This 35% US tariff isn't just trade policy. It's an economic gut punch, hammering jobs, straining cross-border ties, and destabilizing industries across North America. The stakes? Huge. This isn't about numbers on a spreadsheet, it's about livelihoods, trust, and the future of continental trade. So here's the question: smart protectionism or reckless politics wrapped in a flag? Think this is tough love or economic suicide? sound off below. And if you want more raw, unfiltered takes on global chaos and what it means for you, subscribe now. This is GlobeChoas Insights, where geopolitics meets real people.